having the will, the determination, and perseverance with a team to develop it and bringing it over the line. And that's what biotechs need. And this is what I saw in Akari, this really unique technology, really high science that was first in its class, potentially best in its class. If we can develop it and do the things that we aspire to do, and we think it has the potential to do.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the Virtual Investor On Demand Summer Spotlight What's Your Story series. My name is Janine Thomas. I am CEO of JTCIR, and today we are featuring Abizer Gaslightwala. He is President and Chief Executive Officer of Akari Therapeutics. Welcome, Abizer.
Thanks, Janine. Thanks for having me here. Great to be back.
Always happy to have you. Before I turn it over to Abizer, I'd like to remind our audience that Akari trades on NASDAQ under the ticker AKTX, and the company will be making forward-looking statements today, and I encourage everyone to view the company's website at akaritx.com for the latest information. All right, Abizer, I'm going to turn it over to you. We're going to dive right in. We want to hear your story. So if we can start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey to CEO of Akari Therapeutics.
Sure. Well, it's always a great question, and I'd love to expand on that. So, as I think about how I got here, often it's unpredictable, as life is, right? And you kind of go along with the journey, and you go in with the experiences. And if there's one constant theme in my life, it's around curiosity and living in the moment and trying to just be the best you can in that moment, knowing that where you want to go and trying to get there. And I think if I were to say what's kind of led me to this path and the conviction to be in the biotech space and be a leader in the biotech space, it really started when I was pretty early in my life. I was a teenager at the time. I think I just entered my teen years. And, I listened to a lot of different interesting kind of media at the time and read things. And I heard about this term. I was always a science person. Math and science were my natural inclinations for things I gravitated towards. And I heard this term genetic engineering. And at the time, that was like not as common and a little bit unusual. Like, well, what is that term? Out of my curiosity, I was like, well, what is that term? It sounds a little unusual, engineering, but never heard the word genetic in front of it. And the more I read at a kind of high level, it was like, wow, that's interesting. It can actually do interesting things to, change these, bacteria or cells to have them do productive things that we can benefit from, whether it's making pharmaceutical products or therapies for patients. It's like, wow, that's pretty interesting. But that sounds really high tech. It sounds really precise. And I'm like, wow, maybe that's something I want to do as I think about my career. So although, I didn't exactly envision what I would be doing in the role I'd be doing at that time in my life, I was fascinated by this concept of genetic engineering organisms, having some sophistication around helping them do things that are productive for us, and in particular, making new therapies to treat diseases. And so I kind of as I continued my journey through education and work experiences, I always had this kind of common arc I was going in aspiration of how do I continue to go into the life sciences space? How do I prepare myself from a technical training, even from a business perspective, as I start to get more into how to be a business leader? And when I eventually entered the biotech industry, and it's been over 25 years now, it's always been this, what I call this curiosity journey of taking every experience from what it is and building to say, well, how will this make me a better leader or person in the life science industry to ultimately deliver solutions for patients and others that can benefit from them. And so that's kind of the arc I've always taken to try to live for those experiences, be curious, learn things that maybe are not as easy for you, and take them for what they're worth and do the things you really like and maximize the benefit you can do. And it's kind of led me to this journey here to lead Akari, which I'm really excited about, because when I think about we are doing things around genetic engineering, antibody drug conjugates are made through a lot of those technologies that I once talked about or thought about or even learned about. And we're taking that to the next level in ways that people didn't even think about even maybe 10, 20 years ago in terms of what ADCs are. And that's what's exciting, that we're on the cusp at Akari of taking even a concept like ADCs, and we want to shift the thinking and the paradigm of what's possible for even what an ADC is and what an ADC can do ultimately for patients, families, and healthcare providers.
Excellent. Appreciate that background. So as you think about that arc, right, that you talked about, was there a definitive moment that shaped your career, focus, or passion, or even guided you to the CEO moment?
Sure. I don't know if there was one. There were probably many. I think the first one I talked about was being a teenager and hearing that term genetic engineering. So what did I do? I actually went and did a little research as a summer intern in a lab at the university in my hometown where I grew up in, and got to see that what genetic engineering is and what some of the stuff was. It wasn't as glorious and amazing and fantastic as everyone thinks it is. Magazine covers and articles look a lot glossier. But what I learned is like at the end of the day, even cool technologies have sometimes a little bit of what we call monotony and routine work because that's actually the sweat and the perspiration it takes to develop technologies. And so that was a defining moment in getting me immersed into what genetic engineering, what biotechnology is, but also the reality of what it means to play the long game. Think about the work and the energy and the commitment and dedication required to take even cool technology and work on it day in and day out to progress things. And there were a lot of days I was like, what am I doing as an intern? I'd be out at the beach or at the summer pool hanging out, but I'm learning these things and just try to challenge myself to kind of say, if you're curious about it, go learn. So I think that was one defining moment. I think the other kind of defining moments in my career were ultimately when I made this pivot after business school to kind of think about what do I really want to do. I went to eventually the life sciences industry, but I had this opportunity to work specifically for a biotech company. And that really opened my aperture in a sense to think like, wow, this is the power of biotech. Because the company I went to work for was developing really amazing therapies, not in cancer, but in another high unmet need area. And it just gave me insight into, as much business analytics and work and things you do, the products that we get to make really impact people beyond like what you can even imagine and see because you don't see these patients day in and day out, but when you get to talk to them and see them and know the benefit you're doing, that is the mission. That's the mission we're on, ultimately everyone in the biotech industry, to deliver meaningful solutions for patients to have a better life.
Love it. And I think, as I look at your background, I have worked with like preeminent pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies. And, you look at your newly appointed position as CEO for Akari Therapeutics. So what made you have this catalytic shift in your career from, a larger pharmaceutical company, larger biotech company to, coming to Akari Therapeutics?
It's a great question. It's really what's my why. And I think what I would say is it's really, if I were to kind of go back to what I said, it's really this passion for being in the biotech space and driving innovation and taking things to a different level. And yes, I had a really great job. I was at a great company that I led a large team. We had a great portfolio of oncology therapies that had meaningful impact, and we were on the cusp of doing even bigger things. And it was a stable job, and it was a challenging and amazing job, and I had a great team. But I traded that in for this because it goes back to that ultimate mission and aspiration of being in the biotech industry, really forging ahead on cutting edge things, but having the will and determination and perseverance with a team to develop it and bringing it over the line. And that's what biotechs need. And this is what I saw in Akari, this really unique technology, really high science that was first in its class, potentially best in its class. If we can develop it and do the things that we aspire to do, that we think it has the potential to do. And but bringing that to life, requires commitment, it requires that dedication. What I talked about when I did that first internship requires perseverance and doing that not just by yourself, but with a team and building the right team and keeping the team motivated and keeping the team focused on execution and expecting us to be excellent every day because ultimately that's what's going to help us define this really groundbreaking, what we think could be groundbreaking therapy, ultimately to bring it to patients, in the future soon. So.
Well, Abizer, I love your story. I love your why. I love what you've told us so far. Can you tell us one thing that people would be surprised to know about you?
Sure, there's always a bit of perspective of, oh, what do CEOs or leaders of companies do, and are they normal people? Do they do normal things? And I think, yeah, we are normal people, and the things that you do before you're CEO are a lot of things you do after. You don't change as a person, and ultimately, one of the things I do that I think is kind of relaxing, not every day, but days when I really want to do it, are cooking. And the reason I like cooking is if you take away the chore of I have to go eat something, sometimes you just want to make something because one, it's not mindless. It actually takes your mind off of the day-to-day things you're doing and allows you to focus on something else. But it's really this interesting thing when you make a dish, you have this art of creativity of starting with raw materials and the process you're going to make them, and then building that, and then hopefully tasting a great product in the end. But it's not always guaranteed because if you're a little distracted and you don't mix the ingredients well or you don't prepare something well, you're not going to get the same great dish you made maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So I think that aspect of just trying to take your mind off the day in and day out, focus on something that requires you to be present in the moment, kind of frees your mind up in a different way, and it keeps you focused. And you get the benefit, you get a reward at the end if you did a good job. So I do like, again, I wouldn't say I cook every day because that can be tedious, but I think try to split up chores in the house and do other things. But when I do cook, it's kind of relaxing, and you get to make an end product that you really enjoy at the end.
Excellent. Well, I have an idea for our next segment. I think we do it from your kitchen, and you could be cooking while I ask all these questions. So
Yes, you don't have to
there we
multitask.
go.
Yes,
It's
for
a
sure. I don't
win-win.
mess up the ingredients. So.
All right, Abizer. So, one last question for you. As you reflect on your journey to this point, how do you think your story and leadership positions the company, meaning Akari Therapeutics, to create stakeholder value?
Yeah, sure. It's another great question. One of the things that I continually have tried to develop and be as a leader, and now in Akari as well, is it's really important to listen to customers. And that sounds like really simple, but it's a lot harder when you peel the onion back. Like, for instance, who is your customer? Is it one type of customer? Is it always the same customer? Those customers have the same priority hierarchy every day. And when in my old leadership roles, that customer base was heterogeneous and different. In this new leadership role as a CEO, it's even more complex and heterogeneous. But it's important to understand that range of customers you have, and are you listening to them? Whether they are our shareholders or investors, whether there are patients that talk about their unmet needs, whether they're physicians or healthcare providers, or whether they're big pharma partners or mid-sized pharma partners that we want to work with, whether they're manufacturing partners. So you think about it, I just named 4 to 5 customers. Sometimes we're the customer, they're the person working with us. But it's important, how do you listen to them and action on and prioritize their needs into the work you're doing? Because if you're just doing work without solving the problems for those customers, you're doing work for the sake of work. You're doing things that may not contribute to an end goal. So I think it's really important you listen to that broad base of customers and really distill out what are you trying to solve for? Do you have the problem statement right? Do you have the solutions that you're trying to solve for that are going to address that? And are you making progress towards that? And I think that's a really important skill. A lot of people get focused internally versus externally as leaders. And so that's one of the things that I've always found helps me succeed in roles I've had before, and I'm continuing to do here at Akari, and that will help us succeed moving forward. The other important aspect is, once you have listened to your customers, and it's not once, it's this continuous conversation, are you then executing with your team to pull it through? And I talked about this amazing science and the platform we have to redefine antibody drug conjugates. But at the end of the day, that's great science. It has to follow a plan of execution. And so that execution plan changes based on the environment. It changes based on dynamic things that happen in the world. So are we being in tune to that? Are we reflecting on that? And are we executing and doing the best we can to drive to success for those customers, for those solutions we're developing? And so I think those 2 aspects of being open and listening to your customers, and then focusing on executing and being the best we can to bring those solutions forward to your customers.
Excellent. Well, Abizer, thank you for sharing your story, and can't wait to have you back on. Can't wait to hear more about your great science, about your great leadership, and the great opportunity ahead for Akari Therapeutics. So I'd like to thank our audience for tuning in. And if you're interested in what you heard today, I encourage you to visit Akari's website at akaritx.com for more information, and go on their website. You can sign up to receive their alerts and follow their social channels to stay current on the latest information. And if you'd like to hear more of our summer Spotlight What's Your Story webcast, we encourage you to visit our website at virtualinvestorco.com. Abizer, thanks again, and I wish everyone a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks for having me.